Joining me on this episode of the Neil Wilkins podcast is Garik Tate. Now, Garik is an AI futurist and also CEO of Valhalla team, where they partner with values-aligned companies to build SaaS products, to enhance their marketing efforts through AI innovation, and a whole host of other things. So Garik is a strategist, he's a tactical genius, and we're going to unpick how you do AI marketing, particularly when it comes to outreach. So bear with us and we will get to that point if that is something that is really testing you right now. Welcome to the podcast, Garik.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, so am I. And I think this is a thing that I think a lot of marketers who are kind of really reaching out and trying to achieve things in the short term with this whole kind of concept of AI are really tussling with, and some really, I think, struggling with certain conversations that I'm having. And it's interesting as well. I'd really sort of like to hear your take on this thing that a lot of marketers, according to the research, are trying this stuff and they're not coming back. They're almost frightened away from it. I think much like consumers are having a little go with ChatGPT and then they're not returning because they're not necessarily seeing a huge amount of value. Well, what are you seeing in your work and your travels?
Yeah, the way I think about it is that the AI does a fantastic job if you know exactly what to ask it and how to ask it. So it's like a very well-educated, very motivated, very happy intern who just often hiring interns is more work than it's worth. But if you know exactly what you need, know what the inputs are and the outputs, then you can really make like magic happen. So I think of it like, honestly, we're in a second industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution, it wasn't casual to build the loom machine. It wasn't casual to be building these engines. They had to be very precisely calculated. But when you get it right and all the pieces came together, the power you could unleash was, we measured it in horsepower back then. It took a lot of work to bring all the engine parts together, but then you get 20 horsepower, 200 horsepower. Like, you were able to do amazing things. But it's something that does take mastery, and it does take learning some new skills for sure.
And when we're kind of sort of seeing this, I guess, starting point for most people, which is I log on to ChatGPT, I do a few little prompts, I see if I can create a recipe out of the ingredients that I have in my refrigerator. I go, it's very, very basic kind of, well, I guess, kind of search, where you're going to get a single result back for your search prompts. And then, so if you're only limiting yourself to that level of interrogation of what's possible, you're not going to be particularly impressed. Well, you might be wowed for the first couple of searches, but after that, it's kind of like it left empty, isn't it? How do people, or how could people begin that kind of initial foray into a deeper version of an AI tool?
Yeah, I love that. Back in 2023, we were a lot more just focused on like getting people exposed to the first level. But at this point, most people have already played with it a little bit. They've been interacting with it. And they're kind of ready for that next level. And for me, that next level is really with AI augmenting automation. So every marketer, if they're building a funnel or building an outreach process or building a marketing channel, they're probably going to hit a point somewhere in their career where they need to do some sort of automation. So I think that most of your audience would be familiar with something like Zapier. Personally, I'm a huge fan of make.com as an alternative. I definitely think it's better than Zapier in pretty much every way. But you have a tool like, I need to integrate these two platforms together. I want my Calendly to link up with my CRM, or I want my marketing funnel to easily integrate with the advertisements we have out, so on and so forth. And for me, the next big power up of AI is not just using ChatGPT to brainstorm creatives or to make you more productive in your output. It's to use AI in particular steps of that marketing system that you're going to be building. I think that's the next big unlock for a lot of marketers.
This is so encouraging to hear you saying this, Garik, because I've been kind of sharing that story with a lot of people in the hope that it kind of makes sense to me. And I think, at a very basic fundamental level, it's not rocket science, is it? It's kind of, if you have a process, AI is going to fit in with that process. It's not the other way around. Do you think that's where people have almost become unstuck a little bit? Is because they think, oh, AI is here. Okay, I'm going to lose my job. AI is here. Okay, it's going to solve, all my challenges, and I can just step back and it'll just do it. Whereas actually, I think what we're both saying, and I totally agree with you on the make.com, we'll come on to that in a minute. It's a really fascinating platform. But do you think if people view it from this way around, which is, you have a business, you have a pipeline as you describe it, and the AI tools there are to serve certain elements in that journey or in that process, rather than it being, okay, I'm subservient to the AI tool. In other words, whatever the AI tool can do, that's what my marketing now becomes. Because that's very confusing, isn't it? Does that add to the chaos, do you think?
I love the way that you put that, that people see this tool and they kind of see it as almost like a monolith, like this big, dramatic, scary thing. I'm going to lose my job because of this, or my job's going to become way easier. And it's kind of like this monolith. I think a lot of companies honestly just used AI without really even knowing what they wanted to do with it, which is really just motivated by a FOMO. And I have it just made me remember an interview I was watching with, I was trying to remember his name, but it was on the show Impact Theory. He's a gentleman who went blind, but he went blind very, very slowly. So he has a condition where the pixels, the cones inside of his eyes go out one at a time. So between the ages of 8 to about 20, it was quite horrific. You're slowly losing your vision. And he, in his teenage years, didn't have any real direction on how he was going to handle that. It's an overwhelming thing that impacts every area of his life. And one of the many challenges is that he would be running into fire hydrants on the street when he was walking down New York. And eventually a friend of his got him to use the walking stick that just to be in front of you. And it just was one more problem solved. All of a sudden, that part, he could now continue to walk the way he had before. And every single monolithic problem just became a tactical, okay, I got to do this differently. I got to do this differently. I got to do this different. And this idea that it's not one thing, it's all just fire hydrants. It's fire hydrants all the way down. It's turtles all the way down. It's just a 1,000 little micro details is the way that winners think versus people that kind of get deer in the headlights. And I think that's the same with any major change in the industry, any major change in our lives. It's never just one thing. It's 1,000 little things. And so I think there's a lot of ways we could take that, but that's a mindset I really want people to be grasping, because these tools are incredibly powerful if you know how to use them. But that's a process.
And to me, then there's almost like a level of control now that we've established. So it's not we're subservient to the AIs. The AIs have arrived, and the world has changed. It is kind of, I'm still in control as a marketer, entrepreneur, business owner. It might be a side hustle, or I might be part of a big organization, but it's okay. That is not fundamentally changed. And by doing that and having it in that perspective, it then gives you a chance to, I guess, almost be a little bit patient and say, okay, right, now let's sit back and let's reflect on where the biggest opportunities might be. So it might be, where can I get value by doing the automation that you say? It's where can I reduce costs by becoming more efficient in this part of the process, rather than it being, here's a big AI, I drop it in there and I switch it on and I wait for it to perform. It kind of isn't like that, is it? And I think a lot of people have become quite kind of, I guess, sort of clouded by that expectation of it. And it's almost unfair to AI to expect it to be able to kind of come in and deliver at that level, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not personalized to your use case. And you need to start with a problem in mind first. It's an amazing new tool, and it's the cool thing about it is it's a bit of a Swiss Army knife. It's not really immediately apparent exactly how many things it can do. It can. We have built the internet, text-based, image-based, video-based, and so much of our economic activity is there in a way that the AI has access to. It has access to those inputs, has access to those outputs. And AI essentially is really just a black box to translate outputs into inputs into outputs. So there's no wonder that, like, fundamentally it is a bit of an omni tool. It can do a lot of different things. But the way that we use it practically is we can't start with that. We have to start with a practical problem of what am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to cut costs? Am I trying to get new clients? Am I trying to make the existing clients more valuable? And then, what is the 80-20 fulcrum that actually leads to that result? And then when you have that clarity of what your problem is, then adding in AI as a step in that process, boiling down its outputs and inputs, and then you're off to the races. You can start building your solution. And you can really build it even if you're not a developer, just using tools like make.com or other things.
Yeah, I'd love to pick up on those three. I've just made a little note there, the three kind of elements that you've sort of said, because I think it would be lovely if we can kind of uncover some of the things you can do in those three elements, which is cut cost, find new clients. That's the outreach thing that I began with. And then this idea of getting more value from existing clients. I really like that one. That's not one that's on my radar right now for AI. It is something I do obsess around for my clients and people that I work with, but it isn't one that I've really tapped into AI for. So I'd be very keen on your sort of guidance and opinion on that one. But should we start with the cutting cost? Because I think that one for lots of people is what they've heard and what they've seen in the media. So a lot of people are talking about this whole thing about efficiency through AI, aren't they? Is that something you're seeing with your clients and with the work you're doing?
Yeah, I'm seeing that quite a bit. I'm seeing honestly a lot of it being driven by people just trying to get more with less. Like right now, I think the state of the economy, I think the state of a lot of things, especially in the tech industry, which is the area I play with, a lot of capital has dried up, and there's a lot of macroeconomic reasons for that. The baby boomers retiring, which kind of changes how their investment assets are then allocated to less riskier things. So the very, very top of the funnel, if you think like all the money in the world, a lot more of it's now going to less risky investments as the baby boomers retire. So there's a lot of downstream reasons for it, but it's something that was always going to happen. And so a lot of less investment is being put into the tech space and into the spaces that, I think people in my industry and probably a lot of people listening to this are exposed to. So there's a lot of squeeze right now. And so a lot of people I see are not trying to think like, okay, how do I, pay my employees less? It's just like, okay, I have limited funds here. How do I still rise to occasion? How do I still get what I need to get done? So like that's the first point I want to be putting out there. Most of what I'm seeing is coming from that kind of perspective. If you with that perspective in mind, AI, if it's let's look at this like McDonald's. In McDonald's, they can take anyone off the street, put them into their economic engine, teach them in about 5 minutes how to flip the patties, how to use a timer, how to do the basic things, and they can start generating economic value like that. But that's not leveraging that person's power as an individual. That's not leveraging who they are. That's just putting them as a cog inside of a machine. If you are a 4-star Michelin restaurant, you can't do that. Your situation is about getting the very best artists, making sure that they're absolutely on their A game, removing all inefficiencies, and then letting them just run their engine and just get out of their way. It's a very different sort of model. And the situation that we're in right now with AI is that a lot of that work where the outputs and the inputs were super, super clear and it didn't take a lot of individuality, it didn't take a linchpin like how Seth Godin describes it in his books, those work can be handled by AI in the online space. The practicalities, if you actually try and do that as a business owner, is find the tasks inside of your organization that are being done the most often. They're the most systematized, they're the most predictable. Locate the inputs and outputs, and then use a tool like make.com to integrate the platforms and have the AI step in where it takes judgment and or creative energies. And that's the framework that I walk our clients through.
And the great thing about that now is, and I know make.com quite well, Zapier. I know a lot of people then sort of have that one as it's the alternative, and there's pros and cons, I guess, between that. I don't know Zapier particularly well, so I can't really comment on that one. But it is interesting, isn't it, that this whole thing about the inputs and outputs, because I think that's where the level of confidence needs to grow, I think, in a lot of marketers, and particularly in a kind of a management level. The confidence needs to be there to be able to say, okay, I can replace this person that I can see doing it because I can watch them. I can see that they've picked up the phone, or they've answered that email, or they've done that particular action on that particular spreadsheet, or whatever it happens to be. So I can actually see them doing it. Whereas within AI, hold on a minute, you've got an input and an output, and then there's this, as you described it, this black box of magic that happens in between. And I'm not so sure about that. Is it going to be, do you think, a confidence thing, or is it going to be driven by the revenue? Because the money saving potential here, as you say, with those repetitive tasks that aren't really actually adding any value to the business, but the ROI of that is huge, isn't it? So do you think it might be one or other of confidence and profitability, or is it going to be a mix, do you think, of the two?
I love bringing the word confidence here. I do have a little bit of a different perspective on it, but I think you're hitting the nail on the head that, like, if you have a person doing it, you might have confidence in their wetware. If you are having an AI do it, honestly, I think very often when the rubber hits the road, we are not we're not always that confident in how well we're able to describe what we actually want done. Like, I see very often in my working with my clients that the reason why they can't use the AI in this one particular area has nothing to do with the AI's capability. It has everything to do with how they've standardized their process. Like, they haven't put in the hard work of actually detailing, in this edge case do this, in this edge case do this, and make these decisions in this order. They just puke it out onto a human. The human mind is still way better than AI at pretty much everything that we care about. It does all the pattern recognizing. It kind of puts everything into an order to some limited capability, and we just kind of trust that implicitly. So we're not being precise in our thinking. So I think that is the real problem. People just don't have always the wherewithal, the capability, or just the capacity to clarify their thinking in very precise language. With that being said, you brought up this point of, can we really trust the AI because it's a black box? I think if this process is done correctly, then you should be able to boil this down essentially into a spreadsheet. The columns on the left are the inputs. Maybe those are links to images. Maybe they're links to videos. Maybe they're raw text. Maybe it's code, whatever. You should be able to boil that down to columns on the left, and then the outputs are columns on the right. And then either you queue up 100 examples, real world or imaginary, or you see the last 100 examples that were ran, and you should be able to audit left to right. Did it make the right choice? Did it make the right choice? Did it make the right choice? I put out these 15 YouTube videos, and I had the AI write 5 tweets each. So here's the link to the YouTube video on the right-hand side. Here are my 5 tweets. And you should be able to just audit that. And that ability to audit it should be baked into your process. And so I think that that's how we should get confidence. And while it is a black box, or black box components, the processes that we create as individual small business owners can be harnessed. I'm trying to get the right language, but I think what I'm saying. It should be auditable.
And there, I think, lies this almost this golden bullet, isn't it? That is, if you are willing to spend the time, if you're willing to put the energy in, do the hard yards at the outset, even before you decide, is it make.com, Zapier, whatever, you've got to do that process mapping up front. So it's almost the rewards come after you put the effort in. This is not a single simple fix, is it? This is something that you need to plan this. There's the word strategy, I think, probably comes in here. One, you've got to decide which processes are the ones that you want to be fixing with AI. And then you've got to do the work. And having done the work, as you say, if you test it and do it properly, then the rewards come. But there is a patience factor coming in here, isn't there?
Yeah,
Particularly for a busy organization.
It's a metaphor before of like, you got to build the engine together, but once it's unlocked, it unlocks hundreds of horsepower. Like it's not even a competition, but only after all the pieces come together.
Yeah, that's great. And so the cutting costs, the sort of enhancing ROI of processes, brilliant. Absolutely love it. So that was the first one that you mentioned. Second one that you mentioned was getting existing. I want to come on to the new clients and the outreach thing, because I think that's going to be fascinating for everybody. But where I generally start, if I'm consulting or talking to an existing client, I will say, and I know this is not rocket science, but that the most value you're going to get in your marketing activities are going to be from existing clients, because it's cheaper. You know who they are. They've been through part of the journey already. Yeah. They kind of know you, they trust you, we hope, and you're obviously doing a good job with them, we hope. But let's just say all of those boxes are ticked. How do we then start to think, okay, I've got all these AIs now ready and sat around me, all these little interns, probably over caffeinated, so they're all excited and ready to do their work. And I've got these existing clients. Okay, now what do I do? What would Garik say?
I would say that this is probably the area that's going to change the most depending on your particular industry, because it depends on the value that you're providing. So of anything to give a broad answer, this is probably the hardest, but I can point your audience into the right direction here. So you want to provide the most value to your customers possible. And you want to provide it hopefully with your own IP, with things that make you to some degree unique. And it would be really nice if an AI could help deliver that IP, or could make that IP more interactive. And so this is where the idea of like creating your own chatbot has come alive. I think that creating your own chatbot is something that you want to be careful about, because once again, it's like you want to make sure you're not a hammer looking for a nail, that you're making sure you're solving the right problem first, rather than having a solution looking for a problem. But the idea of building your own chatbot is something that's really interesting. I think a lot of people should at least have a clear picture, because even if it's not a chatbot, the same ways that we build chatbots are the same ways you can leverage AI in your off of your IP in any context. So the way that these chatbots work is that essentially they're just glorified ChatGPT on the back end. It's literally just ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever service they use. But if it's a chatbot from a particular brand, or that represents a particular set of IP, for instance, we built a chatbot for one of our sister companies that is primarily led by influencer marketing. So the founder puts out content around how to hire VAs and how to work with VAs. So we took every transcript from every video she ever made and put all that into a chatbot. So when people are chatting with it, they are getting the same advice that she gives inside of her videos. It makes it interactive, increase the value that she was able to deliver at scale. And the way we did that is, like I said, we took all the transcripts and we put into what's called a knowledge base. So what a knowledge base is you can think of it as essentially the middleware between the customer's question and ChatGPT. They're still actually just asking ChatGPT, but the way it works is that when the ChatGPT receives the query, it's receiving the query plus the most relevant parts of the knowledge base. So, for instance, in this example, if somebody said, like, how do I motivate a virtual assistant? It would take that word motivate, and it wouldn't just do like a Control F search. It would take a thesaurus of different definitions of that word, take a thesaurus of different definitions of that sentence, and then search the knowledge base to find the concepts most relevant to that. And then when it asked ChatGPT, it would ask the question with the relevant context. Still just ChatGPT, but now with the context. And so that is essentially what these chat platforms are doing, and it's essentially what you can do also, maybe not as a chat bot, but at any one of a number of ways with customer support and customer upselling and customer engagement. So that is one way that you can think of using AI to increase the value of your IP and the value that you're providing. If you want something practical, voice flow is probably the one I endorse the most often for building chatbots and building knowledge bases, but there's a ton of other platforms out there, including custom GPTs and other things, just to make it practical. But that's probably how I think about it.
So is this going to be then almost this perfect answer to the word personalization? Because, in marketing for many years, decades probably, there's been this whole concept of one-to-one marketing where, you've got a customer, or it could be a prospect. We'll come on to prospects in a minute. But you've got a customer and you want to give them something that is kind of truly personalized. It just knows, and it's just nuanced, and it's the context that they're arriving in the conversation with, and then you deliver this just perfect personalized experience, not necessarily service but experience. Is this what we're talking about here? Because this, to me, just sounds what we've all been waiting for. This ability, using, as you say, the middleware, and then obviously an engine behind it that actually enables absolute personalization. Because it feels that if I'm in conversation with this bot, I can kind of get it to answer any possible combination of things that are very personal to me. Is that where this is going? Because it feels like it.
That's exactly where this is going, and it's you with your valuable IP being in the middle of that process. So the way that you advise people is probably very different from other people, and if they're coming to your brand wanting your particular way of doing it, if you're working with them one-on-one, if they have access to you one-on-one, the advice you're going to be giving is very different than the advice they would be getting just by reading your book. Not because the content is different, but because the way it applies to them would be very different. And so I do think this is a bit of the holy grail. I remember there's this mindfulness teacher that was a mindfulness instructor for the LA Lakers in basketball. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but I'm into mindful athletics. And in an interview, he was being asked, like, what's like the secrets you give them? And he said, honestly, 80% of it is just context. Like it's always context. There's not any silver bullet. It's always context. And he had written a book, but 80% of the value that the basketball players were getting from him on one-on-one coaching was just personalized. And I think that scales to any industry, any IP.
It's exciting, isn't it? It really is. It feels like the perfect storm now. We've had this desire to serve customers and clients in this way for so long, and now it feels like everything is coming together. The tech is kind of catching up now with this, and often, I guess we kind of feel the tech is racing away from us, but actually, in terms of the rollout and delivery of this, it kind of feels like the tech has now arrived. But we've wanted this stuff for ages. Those of us who have kind of thought at this sort of level about how we serve and we'd like to be able to do for customers, and it just feels like it's caught up. It's here. Right, now's the opportunity. So let's come on to the third version then of the thing. So you talked about cutting costs, so that's the efficiency thing. We've talked a little bit about existing clients and the personalization. The big one I know that you're working on a lot at the moment, and I really want to get into this one because this is almost like a missing piece of the jigsaw for me, is this whole idea of outreach and new clients. Where do we begin with that? Because who wouldn't want new business?
Yeah, so the thing that we've been building for the totality of this year has been a system that takes what we've been talking about before of personalization, of understanding someone's context, and combining that with marketing to say, what are the particular problems that this person has that our service or product can solve? And so what that looks like, we call it AI cold outreach, and we're not the only people playing inside this space. I think that we bring a lot with our 6 years of AI development and 10 years of marketing material. I think we bring a lot to the table, but this is something that's available to really anyone. So I'm kind of happy to also walk through the practical use cases if people want to be going on this journey themselves. But what we've built with AI cold outreach, ICO, is a way of scraping people's website information, all the information about them from their online presence, also their LinkedIn, and then personalizing every single outreach message to them at scale. So the way you can think of it is the amount of time that you would take to, let's say 10 minutes to write the best email that you could write for this individual. scaled that for an entire industry, and to do that at a very cost-effective level. That's essentially the thing we've been working on.
It's interesting, isn't it? So does this kind of begin in many ways with this whole process mapping thing that we were talking about before? Is it kind of a similar sort of process? You almost have to begin with, who do I want to target? What is the sales pipeline, if we use a very traditional old school phrase there? But I think everybody understands what that means. Do we have to kind of go through those steps initially first to figure out, well, how is it that we do it now? And where can the AIs kind of support us and fit? Because I want to get onto the word scale in a minute, because I think for most of us, that's the kind of the ultimate value here. But just from a sort of a simple thing, let's sort of assume that we're trying to develop business in the same kind of way or at the same kind of pace that we have maybe for the last, 2 or 3 years. Let's just use that as an example. Is it about understanding how we go to market, how we do our marketing as a process first? Is that kind of the first level, as it were?
Yeah, the first level that we started off with in building this process was that we knew this was possible. We knew that it was possible in order to gather data about prospects. We knew there's lots of data out there available. We knew that AI could customize that copy. So we knew this was possible. The place that we got started first was taking each step of that, the data gathering aspect, the data organizing aspect, then the AI consuming that data, spitting out the outputs, then taking that output, that copy, putting it into the messaging platform. We use Smart Lead, but there's lots of other tools out there like Instantly or other things. And that can create a complete cycle from end to end. So we took each one of those data points, and without building any code, without building anything, we just looked on those data providers and tools and platforms, and just really get precise on like, okay, this is exactly the data we get from LinkedIn. This is exactly the data we can get from a website. This is exactly the data that we can get from Apollo or whatever. And then we prototyped that out in a spreadsheet without anything fancy, just prototyped it out, and then fed that from a spreadsheet into the AI and started testing out and iterating. Okay, is this creating consistently good ideas? Is this creating compelling copy? And then just built it one step at a time from there. But it was starting by first investigating the real specifics of the inputs and outputs on a tactical level.
And then kind of sort of next step, what happens then? So I get those patterns, I get that, as you say, those consistent sort of performance outputs, as it were. And so I'm kind of sat there then as a marketer with them thinking, great, well, I've done my research. I know what's going on now. Okay, Garik, help. It's kind of that, what do I do with it? Where do I go next?
So the place we get started is first, it starts off with knowing your ideal client profile. I'm sure you've talked about this on your podcast many times. It's always going to be your most important step. If you get this wrong, then nothing else you do down the track matters. You can change the decision, but you want to do something that is both has clear psychographics, clear pains, clear prizes, pains, etc., but also something that preferably you can scrape a database for. So that database, the data you're specifically looking from that database is probably they're going to be either their email. That would be ideal, but if you can't get that, if you can get their LinkedIn profile and their website domain. So their name, website domain, LinkedIn, and email are kind of like the 4 things you want to get. If you can get a mixture of any 4 of those, you can probably get the others using different online tools. When you get some mixture of those 4 data points, you can use a tool like Phantom Buster to scrape their LinkedIn. That's probably going to be the easiest to start off with. There's other tools out there like Golden Leads if you want to scale up, but for most people, I would definitely recommend Phantom Buster. You get the data that enriches the data from their LinkedIn into like a spreadsheet that you can actually consume, and then you can use other tools in order to scrape their website. The one that we're using, I'm trying to remember. I can bring it up in a second, but there's different tools that you can use to scrape the website. And for us, because every website is so unique, the way we do it in the simplest is we feed it to ChatGPT and ask it a series of questions like, right, what is their name? Who do they serve? How do they serve it? What are their primary unique selling propositions? Do they have any case studies? So we summarize it by having an AI scan through essentially their HTML and deliver all that. Actually, now I remember, we just use make.com for that step, because you can just do a get call with make.com. There's other third-party tools you can use also. Now we have the data that we want. We use Better Contact Rocks in order to get the emails from that point. That's one of the easiest tools to use it. And we have scripts and code that automates all of this process. But if you're just doing it yourself, you can do all these steps manually, just download it and upload CSVs. But you use Better Contact Rocks to get the contact information. And then from there, you have all the data you need to feed into ChatGPT to customize your copy. Now, what copy you have the AI follow, because you want to still need to follow a template. If you just ask it like, hey, write me a good sales email, it's going to write like how it scraped most of the data on the internet, which is honestly low quality SEO articles. The reason why ChatGPT is so goddamn wordy is that it learned from the internet, and most of the internet is trash SEO. And so it will keyword pack, it will write, very long sentences because it's paid per word. So if you ask it to write a sales letter, of course it's going to write like an SEO writer, which is terrible. So you need to provide it a little more context about the type of copy you want it to do. And we could talk for a long time about, the different types of copy, but you feed it that information, and then you should have your complete picture. You have all the information about them. You have customized copy. You would then put that into your messaging platform like Smart Lead or Instantly. And then if you built that automated end to end, then you have a lead generation and revenue generating machine.
And therein lies, I'm guessing, the word scale. Because is it unlimited? Well, is it limitless? I was going to say unlimitless. I think that's a double negative. So is it I'm getting too excited by this stuff now. Is it limitless? I mean, because it just feels that once you have that process in place, you press the run button, it's just going to just keep scraping and keep delivering, isn't it?
Yeah, the only limits to the scale at that point are that some of these tools cost money. So you have a certain number of OpenAI tokens or whatever tokens that you have for it, and the different SaaS costs, which we monitor very, very closely with our service, like really nail that down to exact science. But then the other constraint, let's say that you have a good ROI though, every dollar you spend, you make $5 back. So you just throw as much money as possible. At that point, the only scale is how much data you can scrape. So if we go back to the very first step of this process, let's say that you're targeting, we'll use the famous example of dentists. Everyone's targeting dentists. If you're scraping dentists, let's say you search up for it on LinkedIn, say dentists in the USA, let's say you come with 30,000 results. Well, that's then your hard limit. Now, if your hard limit is such that you can contact the entire database every 3 months, then you can probably just cycle through it with different subject lines, right? So you do have a evergreen asset when you have that email list, not truly evergreen because there's going to be people who reply back like, do not contact, et cetera, et cetera. The data might end up becoming degraded as people move jobs or change emails, but you have something close to a evergreen asset that you can use repeatedly, so long as you don't exhaust it more than once every 3 months. But then the magic of this in my mind comes like, well, can you add another data source? Can you use Apollo? Can you use Google Maps? Can you find third-party databases? Can you use and you start bringing in more and more data and start expanding it greater and greater. So then you really just tap your entire targetable market.
Wow, I think is just the simple single word here, because I think anybody who's looking for business growth, and in lots of sectors, as you said, the macro at the moment is challenging, should we say, political scene, world politics, everything that's going on. There's a lot of kind of uncertainty out there. But if this is an opportunity for you, then the scalability, the potential profitability feels amazing. But what's your view, Garik, on the kind of the attention that still needs to happen internally about actually this value? Because you've consistently talked about, things like your USP, your unique selling point, the things that, you're adding value to your customer base with. That's still super important, isn't it? Because if you don't have then something to back up this amazing new, sales pipeline that's coming through, and you've got all these inquiries coming in from all of this incredible AI enabled technology, that suddenly if you've got all these inquiries coming through, but actually you're not a very good business, it's not going to solve all your problems, is it? You've still got to be a good business and do good business for your customers, haven't you? So this is kind of still an important thing to remember, isn't it? To balance actually being a good business with all this emerging tech, because it would be very easy to think this solves everything, but it actually doesn't, does it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Alex Hormozy talks about this really elegantly in his books, $100 million deals and $100 million offers, and he's kind of like right now the GOAT, I think, in the marketing space currently. I guess greatest of all time kind of contradicts it, but he's currently the gorilla in the room for worthy reasons. He's earned it, and he talks very elegantly about the fact that the reason right now why probably a lot of your biggest competitors are smashing it and you're not smashing it, let's say if you're not the biggest person in the room, is that their lifetime value per customer is bigger than yours. They somehow have unlocked a way of getting more value for each customer. And they probably do that because they provide ongoing value, because they are providing enough value to actually justify it. And because of that, they have more budget than you on ad spend. They can spend more money than you per ad. They can spend more money on you per outreach message. They can outspend you to get the incoming customers, because they have built a lifetime value, a way of generating huge lifetime value per customer. And the way they did that is that they have a better product than you. And so if you build an amazing product, that is how you really build. I want to use the word generational wealth, but I don't think it's always appropriate. But that's the way you really build an asset in your business that can, exist beyond you, that can actually stand the test of time. And so there's no hack or gimmick to that. Or if there is a hack, it's a series of 1,000 hacks, because if the shortcut worked, it wouldn't be a shortcut. It'd just be the way. So you just stack as many shortcuts as you can, but it's still going to be a long journey. But yeah, AI is not going to solve all your problems. Or if it is, it's going to solve it one fire hydrant at a time.
I love that fire hydrant example. It's just such a simple analogy, but it just makes so much sense. And I also really, really appreciate this word stacking, really, that you've used a number of times, because I think it's just a great logic and a great way of just aligning thoughts. And I think for a lot of people who maybe aren't as planful and as process driven as some of us, it's just a great way of just saying, okay, you can do this. You can actually plan your way into this. But you do need to not rush. You do need to be patient. You do need to do those, those hard meetings, those hard work, those moments where you just think, oh, I don't want to be going down into this level of detail. I'm a creative or I'm a strategist. I don't want to do the detail. But if you do the detail, those rewards come. And I think, for me, that stacking of those process moments or those fire hydrants, I think is just a lovely way of looking at this. That to me is the big takeaway here. I mean, what would be your kind of parting, I guess, word of wisdom for the audience in terms of like next steps? I mean, we're going to share obviously your contact details and kind of where people can find you, but is there a kind of almost I don't know, what's the French for piece de resistance, the moment, that little kind of phrase or just something that people can almost hook into and say, right, okay, I'm going to do this. That's what I need to do. What would that be?
Well, the very first step that we always start off with is, can you find a database of your ideal client profile? Can you boil down your ICP, your target market, which your target is not your whole market. Like if you say, we work with ed tech companies, you can work with anyone in the technology space, but you target ed tech. And you can attract customers from other verticals, but you actually just say you work with ed tech, just focus on ed tech. You can change it later, but just commit. It's such an unlock to the next level of business. To do that, to define your target market, and then really test it on probably LinkedIn to start with, and then try Apollo or find other databases, use Crunchbase, but see if you can really boil down your ideal client profile in a way that once all the filters are said and done, you have like a 90% hit rate. And you don't have to have a human comb through the data. Or if you do have a human comb through the data, then solve that problem. Make sure you have enough HR capacity to do it. Because if you can really just nail down, okay, these are who we need to contact, that's going to give you clarity not only for ICO, but it's going to give you clarity for any marketing channel you're going to use. Even if you can't use that database without cold outreach, it's going to give you clarity to know how to contact them in the future. So that's always going to be the first step, and it's something that can be is very easy to do poorly, but it's very hard to do well.
And so attention to detail is obviously absolutely key here. If somebody wants to follow this up with you, Garik, I'm really, really keen. I know that there will be people listening to this thinking, I need to be able to talk to Garik. Where's Garik? How can people kind of connect with you? What are their next steps in terms of, taking this journey and inquiring with you?
Yeah, we don't have like a big funnel for this built yet. And we're being careful with how we roll it out, but I think the best way is just to either connect with me on LinkedIn and say you saw me on the Neil Wilkins podcast, or you can check out, we have some contact info on our website, aicoldoutreach.com. And those will probably be the best two ways. And if we can help you build out your campaign, then be happy to do so. And if we don't think there's a good product market fit, or we don't think that's a good fit, then we'll just let you know also, but we'll be happy to connect.
And I guarantee you, as probably if you've been listening to this, you'll know it's going to be a good conversation anyway. Garik, this has been really fascinating. And just for me, I think personally, I just want to kind of say a huge thank you, because actually thinking about this whole kind of AI tools thing in those three logical steps of cost control, new clients, and then existing clients, for me, it's kind of given me a little bit of clarity as to how to do it at a more granular level, rather than just think of these tools as being, they're all part of my giant customer journey and plug them all in. And actually, I've broken it down in my head now, so I've got some work to do. So it's been really, really helpful. And thank you for your time today.
Beautiful. Thank you, Neil. This is a lot of fun. Thank you.